Hello, my name is Devin Simone. Thank you for coming to my channel. Today we are going to be reading some entitled people stories. Before I get into it though, I do have to ask, please like and subscribe because it really does help me out and I am posting content every single day. Now without further ado, let's get into the entitled people stories. Entitled child punches my head, shoots paintballs into my property, whilst entitled father tells me off and revs his Ferrari at 5 a.m. Hello again and welcome back to Tales from the Compound. The support you guys are giving this series is phenomenal, and I love being able to share with you some of my stories of the entitled people I grew up with. If you haven't already, please see my first post for context as to what the compound is and whom some of the main entitled people I write about are. Today, I'm not going to be talking about Anna, Francis, and their entitled mother. Instead, it's time to talk about another family, my next door neighbors, more specifically, an entitled father and his 10-year-old son, who we'll call Simon. I honestly chose not to interact with my neighbors as little as possible, so this post is more of a collection of mini stories of them that I've compiled to paint you guys a full picture of their entitledness. I grew up next to a mosque, and some might find the muezzin singing a call to prayer every morning and night through a loudspeaker to be bothersome or disturbing to their sleep pattern. I, however, quite enjoyed listening to it, but what I didn't enjoy was listening to my neighbor, entitled father, revving his black Ferrari's engine first thing in the morning and last thing before night. Entitled father rarely drove his gorgeous black Ferrari, but in order to keep the engine turning over and stop sand settling inside it, every day and night, without fail, he'd rev the engine as loud as he could for 10 minutes with a fat cigar hanging from his mouth. He would also have a very young, assumably very poor teenager cycle over every single morning and evening and clean the car from top to bottom over the course of an hour, even when entitled father was away on business. Entitled father would also have made his maids and nannies set up his entire back garden social area with pillows, candles, trays of cigars, and flowers before it was even light outside, and we quite literally never saw him use it. But one person we did see use that back garden was Simon, because Simon had a paintball gun and Simon loved to fire off rounds into other people's property. And Simon loved to make his nannies clean up the paintball mess in his own garden as he cackled maniacally. But the paintballs aren't the worst memory I have of Simon. On his 9th birthday, Simon had a WWE party to which I was invited, and this kid was truly a fanatic. His bouncy castle was WWE themed, the decorations and cake all depicted John Cena and The Undertaker, and his WWE toys littered his garden. About 40 kids were in attendance. The parents smoked and drank, whilst the nanny and maids catered for the children. I only pumped around for cake as my own parents suggested it be polite, and they knew I'd rather smell what The Rock's cooking than spend longer than 10 minutes with Simon. I sort of got my wish, because no sooner than I'd arrived, I was invited to enter the bouncy house for a WWE wrestling match with the birthday boy. He'd beaten every other boy at this party and was keen for a new challenger, and since I was a year older than him, he was certain my defeat would win him the belt. So I entered the ring hoping there'd be some cake for me at the end of it. This was when I discovered that Simon had no idea what wrestling was, as he ran at me and began to punch my head with the ferocity of a feral raccoon. Punch after punch, kick after kick connected with my head and groin for all of 5 seconds before I pushed him off, and he stumbled back and tripped over his own feet on the uneven bouncy surface. This resulted in him bashing his glasses and face on the floor and into his nose and eye area where it looked like it was bruising. Of course he burst into tears and ran to entitled father, who he told I'd punched him in the face and tried to kick his glasses whilst he was down, when he simply was bouncing on the bouncy castle. I was rightfully so berated by entitled father for my violent tendencies and the fact that I'd ruined his son's birthday and possibly his face, and that I should leave at once. Without cake, considering my own parents weren't present, I didn't know any of the kids there, and I'd been at the party for maybe 2 minutes top. I saw no point in debating and welcomed the opportunity to return to my home for some Minecraft. Thanks for sticking around for another Tales from the Compound. I hope you enjoyed hearing about some of the different characters, and as always, let me know if you want to hear more. I'm sitting one story in particular, a story that knocks all the others out the park, but I don't know if y'all are ready for that. An entitled person freaks out at a cafe because she can't get a table. This happened when I was out of town about a week ago. I was sitting in a cafe getting some writing done. I had tried to get a seat in there a few times throughout the week, and this was the first time I had actually managed, as it was pretty much always full. Today was no different, but I got by with headphones and the knowledge that no one was going to take me off my precious seat. Suddenly, a 50-something-year-old woman walked in with her husband. She looked around with an extremely disappointed look on her face before muttering some angry rant to her husband nodding along with all of it. She suddenly stepped to the middle of the cafe, her husband in tow, and cleared her throat. I stupidly took my headphones off to see what was going on. Suddenly, she launches into this tangent about how she wanted to sit down and how we were somehow selfish for taking seats for ourselves and staying there instead of leaving after a set time frame to let other people take seats. Next, she said, "Come on then, someone's got to get up so that me and my husband can sit in here." Of course, no one left and felt too obliged to do so after being ranted at so self-righteously. So she fumed some more, and she and her husband began walking from table to table, giving everyone angry stares and occasionally making passive-aggressive comments. When she came to me, I just focused on my computer, and she told me that I was impolite for not even looking at her. I didn't even reply. I just wanted her to leave. Eventually, one of the workers came up to her and said that she would have to go if she wasn't going to order anything and was disrupting the other customers. After a long row between the two of them, in which the woman made some lovely comments about the worker's choice of career, the woman left in a huff, her husband furiously following behind her. She flipped us all the bird as she left. One of the customers near me said, "It best. Think that's over." Edit. I'm getting the impression that there may be just different rules of etiquette regarding cafes in different places. Just to clarify things, where I'm from, people are generally expected to spend longer than half an hour or so in a cafe. Most cafes build a lot of their brand on being places where people can chill out or work. This was a cafe with books and board games littered around the place, which was clearly a place where people were expected to stay a while. The cozy and inviting atmosphere was a big reason I wanted to be there to begin with. I don't think they objected to me riding in there for an hour and a half. I also hope that that's not acceptable to anywhere rant at a stranger because you can't get a seat. Entitled child destroys property and threatens to evict my family. For context, my childhood was spent growing up in Dubai in a villa compound, which is basically like a mini gated community of 16 odd villa homes that each have a private back garden that then converges in a large shared space with a pool, social area, foliage, etc. Now, as a result of this, everyone got to know their neighbors very well due to the shared social space, and as most homes had kids, we'd all play together in the pool. Now, there was a particular family with two very entitled children who we shall call Anna and Francis, not actual names, who must have been about 9. These little turds were well known for causing trouble in the community and generally being extremely entitled. One story that sticks out to me most is the following, which I hope you enjoy. One afternoon, my younger brother runs into our house, having been playing in a group with some other kids, and Anna and Francis very frustrated. He announces to me that Anna and Francis are currently in our private back garden ripping the heads off of our flowers. I, of course, go outside to find 2 gremlins ripping apart plants and kicking our hedges in whilst being supervised by their nanny, who spoke very little English. Me, "What do you think you're doing?" Anna, "F you, we can do what we want." Me, "Stop that and get out of our garden." The nanny just stood there with a vacant expression on her face, so I walked up to her as the kids continue to destroy our garden. Me, "Excuse me, aren't you going to do something?" Nanny, "No, they do what they want till dinner." Me, "This is our garden. Can you make them leave, please?" This time no response, besides vacant blinking. So naturally, my younger brother and I turn to the gremlins and very firmly tell them, "Stop and get out now," and start to usher them towards the exit. This is when Anna drops some big threats. Anna, My mother owns this whole compound. We own your house, a-hole. They had colorful language for children their age. Me. She really doesn't. Now get out. Anna, we own your house. We can break anything we want. We can do anything we want. We'll get you kicked out. At this point, we've pushed them out, followed meekly by their nanny, and locked the garden gate. On the other side, they hurl obscenities and eventually run off to find their entitled mother. I'm told by my own mom that she has a heated conversation with the entitled mother, who in fact did not own the compound nor our house, but was very displeased that her children's fun was interrupted by my brother and I. Apparently, we have no right to upset or interfere in matters involving her children, and we would do well to keep our business to ourselves, or the landlord would be called. Suffice to say, my mom was not having any of it, and politely asked that her children don't invite themselves into our garden and don't destroy our property, which was in fact grounds to involve the landlord. The entitled mother left in a huff, and we didn't hear anything from them for a couple of weeks, thankfully, but it wouldn't be long before we crossed paths again with their BS again. If you enjoyed this one, I have plenty more tales from the compound involving entitled parents and kids. As I'm sure you've guessed, Dubai does tend to have some rather entitled people in it, although I did love my time there. One of my worst shifts in retail. So a little while ago, I posted about an older customer threatening to call the cops on my coworker because of a dollar mistake she made. Now I'm here to tell you one of my stories from this toxic workplace. So this happened in July of 2022 or August 2022. At that point, I only worked at my retail job every Saturday due to working a full-time job 5 days a week. Even working 1 day a week at that point just sucked. On this Saturday, I was working register, which I absolutely hate, and everyone knows it. I was on register, and probably for like the first hour, I was in a good mood. I was talking with the other cashiers whenever there were no customers around. That was until my manager, let's call her Kay, came up to me and basically told me how I shouldn't bother the other cashiers and that I needed to leave them alone. She told me that this isn't the time to be socializing when there's work to be done, which again, there were no customers to wait on, and gave me something to do. I should also note that she did tell me this in front of the other cashiers who were literally standing around as well. One of the cashiers, who is an older lady who is really nice and she's one of my favorite coworkers, came up to me and said that Kay was being rude and that I shouldn't let it get to me and how I wasn't bothering her or anyone else. I wish that would have been the end of it. A little later, the next customer service worker comes in to take over the previous customer service worker's shift. We'll call her M. At 6 p.m., one of the cashiers was done with her shift and went to clock out. M decided to go with her and show her pictures of her dog, and then proceeded to have a conversation with her. Meanwhile, I'm by myself, taking care of the line of customers. There was another cashier. She's also my friend. We'll call her F. But she was out on the floor putting things away, as of Kay's request, which I'm thinking she had her on the floor just out of spite of me staying on the register, but I'm not mad at my friend at all. So Em is talking with the cashier who's just clocked out and is on her phone while I'm over here working my butt off, and at one point I asked her if she can jump on and help me ring, and she said she would. Haha, nope. She continued talking with the clocked out cashier while also on her phone as I was trying to take care of customers. One of my customers I was checking out even mentioned how I seemed to be the only one working. With another customer, I once again asked them to come up and help me ring, and she said she would, but taking her sweet time getting to the register, she was still on her phone. The customer I was with even mentioned how it looked like she was ignoring me, and I had to try my best to hide the annoyance while speaking to the customer.
But did she get in trouble for this? Nope. And this happened twice.
A little later, Em told me that she was going to take the trash back and then use the bathroom, so she would be right back, meaning I would be the only one up front again. And since I'd been there for years, I wasn't too nervous about. Cue 10 to 15 minutes, and she still decided not to come back up front. At one point, the phone rang, and Kay said over the walkie that someone up front needed to answer it. Again, I'm the only one up there. I said over the walkie how I was with a customer, and someone else would have to answer it. Then Kay said back in an angry and stern voice how the phone had to be answered up front. I had to stop what I was doing, run over to the register that had the phone, take the call, and then run back and apologize to the customer, which luckily she was understanding, as it was obvious I was up there alone. It got to the point where my stress level was through the roof. The reason I don't like the register is because my anxiety goes high if I'm there for too long, and I get overwhelmed and want to break down and cry. I was so stressed that my stomach started hurting, and I mentioned to one of my coworkers and Kay that I was running to the bathroom real quick. Cue 5 minutes of me being in the restroom, and Kay says over the walkie where I'm at. 5 minutes. M literally got away with disappearing for 15 to 20 minutes, and I couldn't have 5 minutes. I was literally on the toilet waiting for my stomach pain to go away, which it did. Once I told her I was in the bathroom, I'm thinking, great, now I'm gonna get lectured for leaving the register just to use the bathroom. She didn't. After I got back out, F got pulled to zone the store, and M did her nightly things. I once again asked M to jump on the register, and at this time it took her a minute to jump on and help me. But literally, mostly the rest of that night was just me on the register. This wasn't the first time Kay treated me like crap. Even some of my other coworkers agreed that Kay is always after me for some reason. I get my work done even if it's a slow process. There was one time in January 2022 where she kept getting annoyed at me and told me to clock out 10 minutes early, but told no one else. I stayed until the time I left, and when I went to get dinner, it was past 9 p.m. and didn't eat dinner yet. I got a notification that my work, which had been edited to 10 minutes before I clocked out, which pissed me off. I was ready. This wasn't the first time that Kay has treated me like crap. Even some of my other coworkers agreed that Kay is always after me for some reason. I get my work done even if it's a slow process. There was one time in January 2022 where she kept getting annoyed at me and told me to clock out 10 minutes early, but told no one else. I stayed until the time I left, and when I went to get dinner, it was past 9 p.m. and I didn't eat dinner yet. I got a notification that my work time had been edited to 10 minutes before I clocked out, which pissed me off. I was so ready to go in the next day for my next shift and complain about it, but I unfortunately tested positive for COVID at my other job, so I had to call out. I was supposed to work both jobs that day. What I also hate, I had to ask the senior manager for months if I can be on the floor more, and she said she would see what she can do. There was always me being on the register and sometimes being mistreated on the register if I dared to do something all the other cashiers did. It got to the point where I told SM about my anxiety and feeling overwhelmed while I'm on the register, and that's when she took me seriously, which pissed me off because it shouldn't have gotten to that point. When it's anyone else, it's, oh okay, I'll put you on this position the next schedule. Well, I had to fight back for months. I don't mind being on the register for a little bit, but being there for a long time builds up anxiety. I also got diagnosed with autism in February 2022, so that could also be why I always got so overwhelmed. Now, at that point, they had me being a cashier again out of nowhere, and I didn't know why. There was one night I was trying not to cry and not to have an anxiety attack while I was on register. One of my coworkers told me I should stay quiet about talking to my SM why I'm on register again, but at that point, I just didn't care anymore. I was tired of being treated like this. I have a lot of stories about K, but I have loads of stories about M and F and another friend I worked with. Let's call her A. I have stories about her too. If anyone wants, I can go on multiple stories on how M pissed me off, F and A and other coworkers. Edit. I should also note that Kay was another coworker like the rest of us. She even started after I did, before getting promoted to manager.
And if you made it this far, thank you so much for listening. You are a legend. Please check my channel for updates. Like I said, I post videos every single day. Until next time, bye for now.